When I finished reading Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows for the very first time, I remember just this total silence. You know that feeling, right? It wasn't just like finishing any other book. It honestly felt like I was saying a final goodbye to my best friends. Friends I had literally grown up with for a decade. I remember closing the back cover and this huge wave of, I don't know, just emptiness washed over me. The magic was over. The story was actually done. And for years, that feeling just stuck with me. I'd reread the books, of course. I'd rewatched the movies. But that sense of finality was always there. And it was a little bit heartbreaking every single time. It truly felt like a heavy door had just been slammed shut on a world that had become my second home. I'm sure it's a feeling so many of us share. We spent our entire childhoods practically willing our Hogwarts letters to arrive. We sorted all of our friends into houses, we argued about the moral complexities of Snape's character until we were blue in the face. And then it just stopped. We got the epilogue. Yeah, we saw them 19 years later. But what about all the stories that happened in between? What about the rich histories that were only ever hinted at? The characters whose lives were just filled with tragedy and drama and conflict, but were only ever seen in the margins of Harry's big story? That hunger for more, that feeling that there were still so many stones left unturned in this incredible massive universe was just so powerful. It really did feel like we were left standing alone on a train platform just watching our best friends disappear into the mist, forever. Okay, so we have to get into this, because something I discovered over the last few years has completely, and I mean completely, changed how I see the Harry Potter universe. The magic didn't die. It didn't just vanish when the last film credit rolled. It was passed on. It was picked up by the people who loved it the most, us, the fans. And I'm not just talking about fan fiction or online forums, which are amazing, don't get me wrong. I'm talking about a whole new generation of filmmakers. Fans with just unbelievable talent and vision, who basically decided that if the official stories were over, well, they would be the ones to tell the stories that were left untold. They picked up cameras, they wrote brilliant scripts, they built incredible sets, and they poured every ounce of their passion into creating films that honor, expand, and, in some ways even challenge the world we thought we knew so well. They kept the magic alive. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go on a little journey into this incredible world of fan-created cinema. We'll kick things off by exploring what makes these films so dang special. Then we're going to take a really deep dive into 3 of the absolute best, most breathtaking examples out there. We'll explore the tragic, gut-wrenching story of the... And finally, we'll witness the chilling, unforgettable origin story of Lord Voldemort himself. And then at the very end, we'll talk about why these fan-made stories are so important, and why sometimes they manage to explore the corners of the wizarding world with a depth that the original films just never could. Okay, first things first, let's just be super clear. When I say fan films, I need you to completely erase any image you might have in your head of some shaky handheld video shot in a backyard with, cardboard wands. The films we're talking about today are on a whole other level. I mean, these are passion projects for sure, but they are executed with a level of professionalism and pure artistry that is honestly staggering. We're talking about projects with serious budgets, often crowdfunded by thousands of other fans who are just as passionate as we are. They feature incredibly talented actors, absolutely stunning cinematography, visual effects that will blow your mind, and original musical scores that will give you legitimate chills. They feel less like fan tributes and more like missing chapters, like genuine additions to the saga that could just slot right into the official timeline. And, this is a really crucial distinction to make. We're not just talking about homages like a sweet loving nod or a little tribute. These films are expansions. They are driven by this deep, almost academic level understanding of the source material. The creators have meticulously studied the lore, the family trees, the little throwaway lines in the books, and they've asked themselves, okay, what's the real story here? They take the threads that were left hanging and they weave them into these compelling, emotionally resonant narratives that just hit you right in the heart. And they do it not for profit. I mean, these films are released for free on platforms like YouTube, but for the pure, unadulterated love of the story. It's this powerful, amazing form of creative expression that respects the source material enough to go and explore its darkest and most complex corners. All right, let's get into our first film. And for me, this one is, well, it's deeply personal and just incredibly powerful. We're diving headfirst into the story of one of the most fascinating, cursed, and influential families in the entire wizarding world, the ancient and most noble House of Black. We know their names, right? We definitely know their reputations. Bellatrix, the completely unhinged Death Eater, Narcissa, the conflicted mother, and Andromeda, the disowned outcast who chose love. But we never truly got to understand the storm that must have raged between them. We never got to see the actual choices that defined their entire lives and set them on such devastatingly different paths. Well, this film, it changes all of that. The moment I saw the title, The Sisters of House Black, I'm not kidding, I felt this jolt of pure excitement. Finally. The women of the House of Black have always been some of the most compelling characters to me. They kind of exist in the background of the main story, but their actions have these massive, massive ripple effects. I mean, think about it. Bellatrix's terrifying fanaticism, Narcissa's world-changing lie Voldemort, Andromeda's marriage to a Muggle-born which gave us the amazing Nymphadora Tonks. Their choices literally shaped the entire war. I always wanted to know more. What was their relationship actually like before everything fell apart? What kind of crushers did they face growing up in that ancient, noble, and frankly terrifyingly dark family? This 2021 film promised to answer all of those questions. The central theme, the entire thesis of the film, is captured in this one powerful line. For the House of Black, blood isn't just about lineage, it's practically a life sentence. It's the whole toujours pure, always pure ideology that is basically branded onto them from the moment they're born. This film explores the absolutely crushing weight of that legacy. It suggests that for these three women, blood is a prison, a curse that predetermines their path in life. The central conflict, then, becomes all about choice. Can you actually choose your own family? Can you defy the very blood that flows in your veins? Or are you forever chained to the expectations of a dark and twisted heritage? It's such a profound theme, and the film handles it with so much grace and raw emotional intensity. What this film does so brilliantly is break down their individual psychologies with incredible insight. It doesn't just show us what they did, it dives deep into why they did it, their core motivations. For Bellatrix, her devotion to Voldemort isn't portrayed as just mindless evil. The film frames it as this desperate, twisted search for belonging and purpose in a world that demands absolute purity and strength. She finds her calling in the Dark Lord. Then you have Andromeda, who's really the heart of the story. She represents the ultimate rebellion, choosing love over blood, kindness over cruelty, and her defiance isn't easy. It's a painful, heart-wrenching decision that costs her literally everything. And then there's Narcissa, who is maybe the most complex of them all. She is just so trapped, caught between her love for her sisters and her duty to her family's name and her husband. She's the protector, always, always trying to navigate an impossible situation to keep the ones she loves safe, even if it means making monstrous compromises along the way. And this, right here, is where the fan film truly elevates these characters, adding so many layers the original movies simply couldn't do due to time constraints. In the movies, Bellatrix is, well, she's a cackling, one-dimensional villain, right? She's terrifying for sure, but not very deep. This film gives her a tragic loyalty, a sense that her path was forged in this crucible of immense pressure and a desperate need for validation from a new, powerful father figure. Similarly, Narcissa in the films often comes across as just quietly fearful and aristocratic. But here, we see the agony of her choices. We feel the internal war she wages every single day, torn between the toxic ideology she was raised with and the fierce, protective love she has for her son and, in her own way, her sisters. It adds so much nuance and makes them feel so achingly real. Honestly, watching Andromeda's story unfold was what really, really got to me. The film portrays her love for Ted Tonks with such tenderness and sincerity, and you just see it. With every secret meeting, with every shared smile, the chasm between her and her family just gets wider and wider. The scene where she has to make her final choice, it's just devastating. It made me really sit back and think, what would I do in that situation? Can you imagine to have to choose between the only family you've ever known, your sisters, your entire history, and the one person who represents your whole future and your happiness? It's a heartbreakingly powerful dilemma, and this film doesn't shy away from showing the immense pain and sacrifice involved. It truly elevates her from a minor background character to a true hero of the story. Okay, let's move on because we are shifting gears completely. We're going from a somber, emotional family drama to a super stylish, tense, and action-packed look at one of the most beloved and yet most tragic groups of friends in the entire series, the Marauders. We all love the idea of them, right? James, Sirius, Remus, and Peter. Their friendship, their loyalty, their genius creation of the Marauders map, it's the stuff of legend. But we also know how it all ends in betrayal and heartbreak and death. This film takes us right into the heart of their conflict, showing us that the lines between good and evil, prankster and bully, were never ever as clear as we might have thought. When Severus Snape and the Marauders was announced back in 2016, I swear the entire fandom collectively held its breath. This is the story. This is the one we'd all been waiting for. We'd heard all these little snippets about it from Dumbledore, from Sirius, from Snape himself and his memories. We knew there was this legendary, bitter rivalry that defined an entire generation and set the stage for absolutely everything that happened to Harry. This film promised to finally show us what it was really like. Not just a quick flashback, not just a memory swirling around in the pensive, but a real, gritty, honest look at these characters as young men, right on the cusp of a war that would end up consuming them all. It sets the scene right after their graduation from Hogwarts, a point where all that tension is no longer contained by school walls. The very first thing that just blew me away when I watched this film was its look. It is gorgeous. I mean, the cinematography is dark, it's moody, it's incredibly stylish. You can literally feel the tension in every single frame. The filmmakers made a very conscious choice to move away from the bright, magical, almost whimsical feel of the early Harry Potter films and instead adopt a much grittier, more adult aesthetic. And it perfectly captures the era, the late 1970s, when Voldemort's first rise to power was casting this long, dark shadow over the entire wizarding world. The beautiful camera work and the atmospheric lighting aren't just for show. They create this overwhelming sense of impending doom. You feel like you're watching a fuse being lit, knowing that a massive explosion is completely inevitable. And this is where the film truly, truly shines. It completely rejects a simple good guys versus bad guy narrative. It leans right into the moral complexity that J.K. Rowling herself wrote into these characters, the very same complexities that have fueled intense fandom debates for decades now. James Potter isn't just the heroic, perfect father Harry idolizes. He's charming, yes, but he's also deeply arrogant and, frankly, cruel in his youth. The film does not shy away from that one bit. At the same time, Snape isn't just a misunderstood victim. He's ambitious, he's drawn to the dark arts, and his bitterness and isolation are partly of his own making. The film places you squarely in that murky, moral gray area, forcing you to see both sides of the conflict. And caught right in the middle of it all is Lily Evans, the voice of reason, trying so desperately to appeal to the better nature of both the man she will come to love and the friend she is tragically losing to darkness. The entire short film builds and builds to one final epic confrontation. The duel is choreographed brilliantly. It's fast. The visual effects are honestly better than some I've seen in massive big-budget movies. But what makes it so powerful isn't just the spells flying around, it's the raw emotion behind them. Every single curse, every shield charm is just loaded with years of history, of rivalry, of resentment, of pain. It's the moment where the line is crossed for good. For me, watching that duel completely recontextualized Snape's always moment from Deathly Hallows. Seeing the raw, personal hatred between him and James, and seeing Lily caught in that crossfire, it makes his lifelong obsession and his ultimate sacrifice feel so much more tragic and so much more profound. It's not just a memory anymore, it's a fresh wound. So that's the question the film leaves you with, and it's one I've thought about a lot since I saw it. Does seeing James Potter's youthful arrogance and his bullying make his eventual sacrifice for his family even more poignant, a true sign of his growth? Does seeing Snape's genuine pain and his flirtation with dark magic make his future actions more understandable, even if they're not excusable? It just complicates everything, in the best way. It makes you realize that these weren't just archetypes, they were flawed, passionate, and incredibly complicated young people who made choices that echoed for decades. It adds this essential layer of tragic humanity to all of them, and that, right there, is the mark of truly great storytelling. And now, for our final film, we're tackling the biggest question of all, the one that sits at the very dark, beating heart of the entire Harry Potter saga. How did Tom Riddle become Lord Voldemort? We get clues in the books, we see Dumbledore's memories in the pensive, but we never truly get to witness the transformation. We never see the brilliant, charismatic, handsome student actually descend into a soulless monster. This fan film is arguably the most ambitious and well-known of them all. It's a massive production that aims to tell the origin story we were all so desperate to see. The making of the wizarding world's greatest and most terrifying villain. Voldemort Origins of the Heir, released in 2018, is a legitimate phenomenon. It has tens of millions of views on YouTube, and for a very good reason. It looks and feels like a genuine feature film. The production values are absolutely through the roof. When I first watched it, I kept having to remind myself that this was made by fans, fueled by passion and crowdfunding. The film's entire goal was to connect the dots for us. We know Tom Riddle opened the Chamber of Secrets. We know he learned about Horcruxes and went on to kill his family. But what happened right after he left Hogwarts? How did he gather his first followers? The first Death Eaters? How did he find the ancient artifacts he needed to split his soul? This film sets out to answer those very questions. The film structures Tom Riddle's journey as this dark, twisted detective story in reverse. It follows his cold, calculated path from being the brilliant but deeply unsettling former head boy to the nascent Dark Lord. We see him actively hunting for information about his heritage, solidifying his claim as the true heir of Slytherin. Then, we follow him on his obsessive quest for the artifacts of the Hogwarts founders, the priceless objects he will desecrate to create his Horcruxes. The film brilliantly highlights his methods. We see his incredible, terrifying talent for manipulation. He doesn't use force, not at first. He uses his charm, his intelligence, and his feigned vulnerability to twist people to his will. It's a chilling and methodical descent into evil, not a sudden snap into madness. And this brings us to a very, very clever narrative choice the filmmakers made. I mean, how do you tell a story where the main character is a villain you know is going to win in the end? You introduce a hero to stand against him. The film creates an original character, Grisha McLagan, who is an heir of Gryffindor, and she suspects what Tom is up to and tries to stop him. This is a masterful move because it gives us, the audience, a protagonist to root for. Her investigation into Tom's dark activities provides the framework for the entire story. It allows us to see Tom's growing evil through the eyes of someone who recognizes the danger, creating suspense and a compelling narrative anchor that keeps you totally hooked, even though you already know the tragic outcome. I think this is the most profound question the film leaves you wrestling with. Watching it, I was really struck by how human Tom Riddle is at the beginning. He's driven by a primal fear of death, a deep-seated feeling of abandonment, and this burning desire for power and legacy. And these are feelings we can all understand on some level, even if we'd never act on them in such a monstrous way. But seeing that humanity doesn't make him less scary, for me, it made him so much more terrifying. It's the fact that he started from a place that is recognizably human, and he chose, step by calculated step, to shed that humanity in pursuit of immortality. That's the real horror. The film shows that Voldemort wasn't born a monster, he was a man who meticulously built himself into one. And that is an infinitely more chilling thought. So, after exploring these three absolutely incredible films, we come to the big question: why are they so effective? Why do they resonate so deeply with us fans? I believe it's because these films aren't just entertainment. They serve a crucial purpose within the fandom. They are acts of love that fill in the gaps that were left in the official canon. They take the characters who were sidelined, the histories that were only ever hinted at, and they give them the spotlight and the depth they always deserved. They are, in a way, healing the wounds that were left by an ending that felt too sudden, giving us all new stories to live in and to love. Just look at this timeline. It shows just how perfectly, how seamlessly these stories fit into the world we already know. They function as perfect prequels. Voldemort, Origins of the Heir, takes us way back to the 1940s, showing us the very foundation of the evil that would plague the world for the next 50 years. Then, both Severus Snape and the Marauders and the Sisters of House Black plunge us right into the 1970s during the chaos of the First Wizarding War, showing us the personal, generational conflicts that really defined that entire era. They build out the history of the world, adding these amazing layers of context and emotional weight that enrich our understanding of the original Harry Potter saga whenever we revisit it. They make the world feel bigger, older, and so much more complete. So, to recap, what do these films really give us? In The Sisters of House Black, we get this poignant, heartbreaking exploration of family, choice, and the suffocating pressure of heritage, focusing on the powerful women of the story who deserved their own voice. In Severus Snape and the Marauders, we get a stylish, morally complex look at the nature of conflict, friendship, and how good people can do terrible things. And in Voldemort, Origins of the Heir, we get a chilling, epic deep dive into the very psychology of evil and the making of a monster. Together, they really do represent the very best of what fandom can achieve. And that, for me, is the most beautiful and powerful takeaway from all of this. For a really long time, I thought the story belonged only to its creator. But these films, they completely changed my mind. They are powerful, undeniable proof that once a story is out there in the world, it takes on a life of its own. It belongs to every single person who read it late into the night with a flashlight under the covers, who felt their heart race during a duel, who cried their eyes out when a beloved character died. The magic didn't end. It was passed to us, and in the hands of talented, passionate fans, it continues to grow, to evolve, and to enchant new generations. The story is ours now, to explore, to expand, and to keep alive forever. So what do you think? Have you seen these films? Or are there other fan films out there that you feel are absolutely essential viewing for any Harry Potter fan? I would absolutely love to hear your thoughts, so please let me know in the comments below. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey back into the wizarding world. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to explore more incredible ideas, please don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing. Stay tuned for more. Transcribed by TurboScribe. Go unlimited to remove this message.